Welcome back. We are in our last hour of Weekend Express. For the next 30 minutes, we want to take a look at stress, how to cope with stress, the effects of stress, the ability of handling stress. And just to define what stress is, Google says that stress is your body's way of responding to any kind of demand or threat. When you sense danger, when it's real or it's imagined, the body's defense kicks into higher gear. Of course, with me here is psychologist Susan Gitau. It's good to have you here with us this morning. I feel like that definition by Google sort of summarizes what stress is. But let's also jump into probably the signs and the symptoms of stress that we can look out for.
Thank you. Yes, we do have short-term and long-term signs and symptoms, but there are short-term signs and symptoms that will still manifest in the long term. Mm-hmm. We have some people responding. The first response, it's the physical response. So people respond differently. We do have people who experience severe headaches. Some it's sweaty palms, or even your armpits. Some people experience increased heart rate. Some people experience tension in their stomach. They can even have diarrhea if it's so acute. We have some people also having memory lapse, you know. We do have people who also respond in a manner that they become unruly. So they are irritable, so they don't live well with other people. You're quick to temper, and this is not the way you are. And it's good to know that when our bodies are stressed, or when we are experiencing an imbalance in our bodies, there are some people who like avoiding to face that stress. And that's when we talk about taking a flight, you know. There are people who say, I want to fight on. So from our psychological point of view, you may find the people who don't want to fight stress withdrawing or just keeping quiet. But the ones that want to fight, it will show in their behavior. So it's important for everybody to know, because we're very unique, how does stress manifest in me physically? How does it manifest in me psychologically?
And that's the thing. What are the effects of chronic stress? When you know that there's a difference between stress, the one that you can actually handle,
yes,
the one that is good pressure. Then there's the stress where probably it will now start to raise alarms and ring alarms. What are some of those effects of chronic stress? Well,
and it's also good to emphasize the way you said we shouldn't be afraid of stress, because when you have positive stress that makes you meet your deadlines, prepare well for an interview, you should embrace it. Or you want to be excellent in what you want to produce, like students maybe defending their thesis, you shouldn't refuse to face it. But it's good to know that our bodies release two main hormones, the cortisol, the one that increases the blood sugars. It is, for a while, it's good, you need it. But when it is overdone over a period of time, that is when you hear some people have developed blood-related diseases like diabetes. We also have the adrenaline. It helps you. For example, if you are in danger, you know, you need to be helped, like to take that flight to run away. But again, it makes your heart race. So if your heart keeps racing because you're not able to come out of your stressful situation, what is likely to happen is that you're likely to help to develop heart disease. And it's so unfortunate that most people don't realize they have a heart disease until it's too late. That is why you hear so-and-so looked very healthy, they were okay, but they dropped dead.
Wow.
So it's important to know that if I am aware, and I like talking about the body scanning, that I know in my body, where does stress locate itself? Where does it stay in my body? Because that is likely to be the part of the body that is going to be affected severely.
So stress can find its comfort zone in the physical appearance.
Oh, yes.
Take us through that. How? Perhaps, is it when you hear people saying my legs,
yes,
my back?
Yes. So it's important that we do a body scan, that I know if I experience severe headaches, let me know I can also go blind at any one time, because all the organs that are in my head, if they are affected over a long period of time, any of the organs there that are so vital can be affected.
And does stress also have an effect perhaps on reproductive organs as well?
Definitely. Yes. In fact, it's good to know. If people, I actually thought you had a case study of somebody who would have shared how at some point that stress really took them down, right, including in the family line where somebody can't even do anything. And you'll find, like, for most men, what happens, they will go to drink to make sure that they don't face the reality that they cannot rise to the occasion, they cannot have a normal erection because you're so stressed, nothing is working. And for women, in the same way, sometimes people say that women are not interested even in the sexual functionalities or sexual relationship when they are stressed. But definitely you're feeling nothing because there's a lot that in your body that has been damaged. There's a lot in your body that has been killed, especially those people who keep ruminating. You keep thinking about what is stressing you, or what is called a stressor. So you may not take your energies where they are desired or where they're needed. You take your energies to that stressor. So at the end of the day, you're only living for that stressor.
So we've talked about the physical, but also the psychologist, I'm sure that there are also emotional symptoms. Yes. Depression, and earlier on you talked about people sort of pulling back, being alone. Could we highlight that for us a little bit more?
Beautiful. It's good to know sometimes there's a very thin line
right,
between the physical, or what the doctors are so much used to understanding and explaining and treating, and the psychological. But if I want to focus narrowly on psychological, we have a myriad of responses to stress psychologically. We talk about anxiety. The word anxiety simply says you are ever in a constant tension state. We also have depression, but this one doesn't come instantly. It comes, for example, if I have lost a job. Immediately the acute stress symptoms will show in my system. But as this one goes on, or maybe I have lost a loved one, right? If this goes on, finally I realize I cannot manage this, I might become depressed because it's one loss after another one. If you also find some people lacking concentration in their work, and this happens even in short term, and it can also happen in long term. You find somebody who has tension, they cannot work well, or they are moving from one desk to another. And these are small things that people sometimes ignore. You also have some people losing their memory that you can't remember anything.
Right.
You're like, where did I place my car keys? Or you find somebody who has forgotten where they parked their car. It's important to know stress can be that bad. Wow. Or you're crossing the road, and you're not even looking at both sides. You know, you're not aware of the rules.
Your environment.
Your environment, or you're knocking down things. That is a message that is coming from the mind.
Okay.
That you're actually not calm. You're not in control.
We have a caller this morning, Said WARIO. You're calling from Eastleigh. Thank you so much for watching. What's your contribution? Is it a comment or a question to the conversation? Said WARIO, can you hear me? All right. My question this morning would be, perhaps what's your comment or question to the conversation in studio? All right. I'm sure once we get him back on the line, we'll be able to get his comments and feedback. There's also behavioral symptoms, perhaps eating less, sleeping less as well?
Yes, yeah. And some people eat more.
And some people eat more,
so,
yes.
And if you eat more and you are not managing your stress, of course, we talk of obesity. If you eat less continuously, we talk of anorexia. You see now the connection that from maybe an environmental stressor, it goes to your psychological well-being and finally to your medical well-being or your physical health. We also have some type of stress that I like emphasizing very much, what we call the post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm very happy because in 2013, it was listed alone. Before, it used to be put with other stresses. And the post-traumatic stress disorder can be something that you experience that you didn't expect.
Right.
And your body behaves beyond the normal stress situation. And most people are not able to come back.
Right.
And there are 4 ways that you respond to this PTSD. One is total avoidance of whatever happened to you. So you have some people never wanting to talk about a situation that really traumatized them. And the more you don't talk about it, the more it's also putting pressure on your body and your whole psychological well-being. So you may have some people in behavioral, maybe perspective, withdrawing, if it's the avoidance bit. You may have some people also becoming highly irritable.
Wow.
You know.
All right, we seem to have the caller back.
Yes.
Said WARIO, you're calling from Eastleigh. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Perhaps your comment or contribution, question to the conversation here in studio?
Okay, mimi ni shabiki sugu wa KTN News. KTN News ndio channel namba 1 Kenya mzima. Na KTN News ina faida tupu kabisa.
WARIO.
Ningependa kuuliza contact ya huyu shiatsu and surgical treatment. Na nasema asante sana kwa KTN News.
Karibu sana.
Naam.
We will, if you have more comments and feedback to today's conversation, please feel free to call in. Susan, you were also talking about, now we have already highlighted the behavioral, the emotional symptoms and the physical. But research goes to show that there are 10 stressful events, life events, and you had mentioned one of them, like probably leaving a job, a death of a spouse, divorce, marriage separation, imprisonment, which we have discussed here on Set With You, death of a close family member, injury or illness, marriage, job loss, marriage reconciliation and retirement. Those are just some of the top 10 stressful life events that could probably contribute to stress. The ability of handling stress. How does I as an individual work to improve my ability to respond to stress in a positive way, in a much healthier way?
It's important to first become self-aware.
Right.
And the self-awareness that I keep emphasizing, because this is what needs to happen to every one of us. I need to know what stresses me mostly and how does that stress impact my life, whether it's the behavioral perspective, the social perspective, my spiritual well-being, whether it is about my medical health. I need to know. It's important to also note that I need to know who is my support system, who surrounds me, who is that person that I can talk to when I'm so stressed and they take me the way I am, or what else is there for me, because the people who don't have support system, especially the people that we say are introverted, they are likely to be more damaged by stress than the people who are just open and talk about whatever is stressing them. We have men getting more stressed than women. So the gender perspective also comes in here. In terms of maybe the PTSD I have talked about, and none of us is immune to post-traumatic stress disorder. Because if I encounter a situation that I have never encountered before, I cannot say I'm smart enough to manage that. But it's also important to know what resources do I have within. And I don't know whether human beings know that the one thing that God gave us, that breath of life, is so powerful in any situation where you're stressed. And if people wouldn't mind, they can read more on mindful self-compassion. For example, I need to be compassionate with myself, no matter what situation I am in. I need to listen to me. If I asked you right now, Zinzi, to just take a moment and listen to your heartbeat, you might be shocked, maybe how fast it's beating for you to think about the next thing that is going to happen. But how many people take that moment?
To listen to your body.
This is it, like even just placing your hand on where your heart is. How many people do that? Every time you wake up, are you just thinking of waking up, going to work, or you can take a few minutes just to listen to your body? How many people, when you are maybe irritated by someone, maybe in the workplace or at home or anywhere, take a moment and listen to the way your body is reacting? Because that could be a very good point for you to save your life. It could be a very good point for you to save another person's life. But rarely does it happen.
All right, KARIUKI Nganga, you are on phone. You're calling all the way from Embu. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. What's your comment or a question in regards to the conversation here in studio?
Yes. Yes, now, I wanted to ask the doctor because I've had her talking about the the symptoms of the stress.
Yes.
And I have my wife who has been having a severe headache for the last almost 6 years. And she has now started withdrawing from the children, from myself. And whenever she gets the headache, now it becomes a problem. Sometimes she gets sweating. Sometimes she gets withdrawing from everybody in the house. So I don't know what we can be able to do with her stress, because I don't know whether it was the effect of losing a son in 2012 that brought her that problem.
Let me direct that question to Susan Getao. He has a good point. KARIUKI has a very good point. So what happens when you are on the receiving end as a husband, as a wife, as a friend, when you have your partner who is stressed? In KARIUKI's case, the wife has had this headache for 6 years. 6 years, and we know, like you mentioned, that's one of the signs of severe stress, and she's now withdrawing. Perhaps what can KARIUKI and the children do to be there for their mom?
Well, it's bold of KARIUKI. I'm very happy for the way he's been able to share openly. And this is what counseling is all about. And he's able to notice. And that is why if we care about every one of us, you are able to tell, when did my loved one, when did my spouse change? What happened?
So KARIUKI
because
has done
talked
good to
about
notice that.
2012, they lost a son.
Yes.
And probably she was not helped to process the loss and grief. And if you don't process loss and grief, what happens is that the same stress symptoms, especially the severe ones, and when we go to the cognitive part of it, you realize, like for her, she's stuck on something. So it moves from that stress, it moves from that loss and grief. It can be what we call chronic, because it's not going away since then. And if you're thinking about one thing over and over again, definitely, I said earlier, your mind is processing something, not positive, negative, because when we process something positive, we feel good. But if it's negative, then your head is being, your mind is being overworked. So the severe headaches that she's experiencing, and I would encourage, because they're not very far, and even in Embu we have counselors that I could get them in touch with, let the wife be taken to a counselor, so that if the symptoms keep persisting, I'm sure she's been taken to the doctor. If the symptoms persist physically, and you have gone to the doctor and it's not working, it is important to see a professional counselor. Because when you're processed, what we do, stress, we use one main theory we call cognitive behavior therapy, where I need to change the way I'm thinking so that I can change the way I am behaving, and probably induce in me a situation of beautiful, positive feelings.
Wow. All right. So we also have Douglas, who is calling from Embakasi this morning. Douglas, good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. What's your comment or question?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for watching KTN News. I just wanted to ask, and also to comment, what if you let, for example, you lose a job, or something like that, or you are from a past bad relationship, something like that, and you hear exercise normally helps in reducing stress. Could the counselor please explain that to me?
How perhaps exercise helps to release stress?
Yeah, how exercise helps in releasing of stress. And because it has worked for me in the past, I used to cycle, and before, because, I lost my job, and I used to be very stressful. I couldn't even have time to get out of the house. But when I began cycling, things began to change. And it improved,
All right,
So
thank you, Douglas. Thank you. We will be coming to your question in just a moment. Let's also take Joseph. Joseph NDEGE, you're calling from Kikuyu, so we can have Susan answer both questions at the same time. Joseph, thank you so much for calling in as well. What's your comment or question?
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Yes.
My name is Joseph from Kikuyu.
Yes.
Na ningetaka kuuliza swali. Kuna mwanafunzi mwenzangu amekuwa na stress for 3 months. And now that he is about to sit for his exam.
Yes.
Amekuwa na shida ya kusahau mkifanya revision leo, kesho amesahau. Je, ni vipi anaweza saidika ili aweze kurudia ile hali yake ya, kwa sababu amekuwa amekipita mitihani, lakini kulingana na vile alifanya zile cards, amekuwa alifanya vibaya sana. Vipi anaweza saidika ili arudie ile maisha yake ya kitambo, aache kusahau?
All right, thank you, Joseph. All right, so there are two important questions there. I'm glad also Joseph has raised the issue of students. But let's begin with Douglas. Douglas from Embakasi, he was asking, how does exercise help with stress? He went through a certain phase, but then cycling was his way of coping with it. Demystify it for us. Does exercise really help with stress?
It does help.
With coping with stress?
Really, it does help. And probably to touch on Douglas' issue, you know, we always say in our psychology work that there is no slip of the tongue. He has talked about loss of a job, and he's mentioned in there loss of a relationship. There are stages that somebody goes through when you lose anything or a loved one. We have the anger stage, the shock stage, we have the bargaining stage, is she coming back? Will I be called back to my job? And there is that stage that is quite critical, the depression stage, where now you have all these negative emotions, negative feelings coming into your life. And if you're not able to get out, now we can have you going down with depression or any other medical illnesses. And when he talks about exercise, it's quite important. Even the mindful self-compassion exercise, I'm telling you, for people who are not able to go to the gym. You realize most of the Orientals, people from Asia, they really, it's very difficult to find Chinese, Japanese fighting, even in public, because they have a way they have learned from when they were very young to do the mindful self-compassion in form of yoga, meditation, and most of the Catholic nuns, for example, and priests, and some Muslims that always have the beads. This is it. It helps a lot. The exercise, very important. And don't do it and quit. If Douglas has started riding, ride on.
All right, Douglas.
Because what happens, you have oxygen circulating within your system. And the most beautiful place where your oxygen needs to help you in a very big way is in your mind.
So Douglas is on the right track.
Completely.
All right, Douglas, well, you've heard from the psychologist, you're on the right track. Keep cycling. I'm glad also we had Joseph NDEGE, who is a teacher calling from Kikuyu, saying that he has a student who has been under stress for 3 months now. Memory loss is showing, close to exam season now. How does he as a teacher go ahead with helping this student to gain back the confidence that they need to sit for that exam?
It's good that Joseph has asked this question at the right time.
Right.
They have just done the mocks. You realize most of the students were even bright. When it comes to exams that are going to define their life, like now, it's either pass, go to campus, or I'll fail. Some do not know that these thoughts that you start entertaining, what if I fail, what if, also affects your memory. And that is why in every school, there should be that counselor who knows what they're doing. They need to look at the faces of the student. Right now, what the students do to have is exam anxiety sessions that we can talk about exams, because you've done exams since you were born anyway. And these exams that are going to define your future, it's good that you prepare very well. It's good that your system is not stressed, it is stress-free. But how many students are taken through this? How many teachers think it's not about academics, it's also about the student? There could be other things that have happened even in the student's life. Sometimes students coming against students. We can have students refusing to do the group discussions and you're doing it before. You can have a lot of pressure coming from home. Unajua sasa umefika mwisho wa maisha yako shuleni. From here, it is all about you and you alone, you know. We can have pressure from the teachers. Some teachers just get in there and say, you know, we are just parting ways, we are almost parting ways. It's time to define Akina so-and-so, you've been misbehaving here. There's so many sources of stress to a student who is about to sit for an exam. Others is about the nation. Sometimes the things we're talking about, oh, so-and-so is so well-schooled, they don't have a good job. So many things, but the student needs to be helped right now to focus on that exam. And to focus on that exam, you need to remove all the stresses
and anxiety.
This is it, because it's gonna interfere with your memory. You need to have clarity of mind and clarity of thought.
Okay, we also have Regina. Regina, thank you for calling in this morning. You're calling in from Embu. Regina, what's your comment or feedback on the conversation that we're having here in studio?
It's very, very helpful.
Pardon, come again?
It's very helpful. That's very helpful.
All right, we seem to be having a problem. Regina will try and fix it and call you back in just a few. But Dr. there's something that you say that I think is also important.
Yes.
When you're talking about how perhaps the Japanese community, how Christians and how Muslims, how can your spiritual faith, how can your spiritual man help you with coping with stress? Because you talked about meditation, and I think that's also a very important factor that we can highlight. We've already talked about the physical body, the behavioral, the emotional. Let's not forget the spiritual.
Very good. Man is body, mind, and spirit. And I want to connect more with the soul, you know? And what happens in our lives? We are so much focused on our physical and our maybe the mind. But we're not thinking about the soul part of us. That part of you, Zinzi, that is the inner you. We don't focus on it. And that is why you'll find somebody who says, maybe now I'm born again. They start going to church. They do the morning worship songs. That puts them in a situation that you're so reflective, you're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about your purpose in life, you're thinking about your future, your life beyond this earth.
Wow.
You find them relaxing along the way.
So your spiritual life can help you.
It's very, very important.
All right.
And I'm not saying people to become fanatics in case they get me wrong.
Yes.
But it's important to always have time and ask, who is that inner me? Because the more you get in touch with your inner you, the more you become relaxed.
Beautiful. Yes. All right, Regina, we seem to have you back on our call line. Good morning. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. What's your comment?
My comment is that it's very, very helpful. And I would love to get in touch with the counselor herself. It's helping me a lot.
All right, so you'd like to get in touch with Susan Gitao herself?
Yes, I think,
okay.
Her number.
Beautiful. She's smiling. What we will do, we'll get our producer to get your number, and we will share it with Susan Gitao. Thank you so much, Regina.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right, KARIUKI Nganga, you're back on our phone call, your phone line rather. You're calling from Embu. Any further contribution you had in mind?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to also ask the Daktari over my son who is about 12 years. And he has a kind of a memory problem. Because whenever he goes to school, the performance is a bit bad. He's in class 5. And sometimes he cannot even be able to read. Sometimes he cannot be able to read even for the work of standard 1. And sometimes you see the performance is a bit not good. He can keep on asking for one thing for more than 100 times.
Yes.
repeating himself once in a while. I mean, and then sometimes he even asks, what is this and this? He cannot be able to distinguish between the two.
Okay.
Is there any medication that can be able to be done to him to reactivate his memory?
All right. Thank you.
So that he can be able to see things in a different perspective.
Okay. Thank you, KARIUKI. Wow.
Welcome.
Susan, that's KARIUKI. And KARIUKI is a gentleman who called earlier regards to his wife. Yeah. Now he's asking about his son. The performance in school is not so good. He seems to be forgetting, and he's in class 5. Yeah. And I think that's one thing we haven't touched, perhaps, stress on younger people, on children. I think we tend to overlook stress as society. We tend to overlook stress towards children because we wonder, you're in class 5, what are you stressed about, you know? But let's talk about that for the sake of KARIUKI. His son is in class 5. He's not doing so well. He can't remember and grasp things. How do you help someone, a child, cope with stress? I'm sure it's different from perhaps how an older person would cope with stress. Yeah.
Definitely, and I do not want to say that KARIUKI's son is stressed per se, because there's a question we didn't answer. When a significant person like a parent, a mother, is stressed, it automatically goes to the children. It goes to everybody in the family. We do not know, like in this case, unless we do an assessment whether it is impacting on this child. We can also have the child getting stressed. That is true. And children manifest their stress symptoms differently, like crying, bedwetting, fighting other children, becoming maybe indisciplined. so many other things. And they can also be helped to get out of that stressful situation. We look at so many things that a child likes. Like we use play therapy, we use art therapy, we use even song and dance. And you're able to get where the child is stressed. We say like you get into the conscious of the child using the things they're familiar with. We do also have learning disability. So I would encourage even Nganga, KARIUKI,
yes,
to get in touch with me.
Right.
We will get his number so that the child can also be assessed. Because when you're reading something over 100 times and you can't get it, it's the high time we understood it could be a learning disability. And if it is a learning disability, they do not first need any medication. They need to be assessed. And there are people who can do that so that you do not label a child or you think it's stress and yet it's a learning disability that it could be helped in.
All right.
Yes.
Sylvan, we have one more caller. Sylvan, you're calling from Kabarnet. Thank you so much for your time this morning and being on KTN News. How would you like to contribute to the conversation? A comment or question?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, madam.
Yes.
Ninataka niulize swali kwa sababu napiga kutoka Kabarnet. Niko na kijana aliweza kwenda shule. Akaweza kupata accident, yani kuna shimo ya kuna county council walichimba shimo ya joo, alafu mtoto alikuwa anatembea akienda shule na hakuwa anajua kwamba imechimbwa. Alafu akaangukia, akaweza kupata hiyo shida, akasimia for 8 hours, tukapeleka Eldoret hospital upande wa WARIO, na baadaye amekuwa baadaye akaweza kupona, lakini saa hizi ana lose memory. Saa zingine anaweza ako form 2. Saa zingine akienda shule anaweza sahau ya kwamba kuna kitu ambaye hata kama akipika chai anasahau. I took him to the hospital, wakasema ya kwamba macho moja ni mbaya, tukanunulia glasses. Lakini pato memory ijarudi vizuri. Saa zingine kusahau, mara inarudi vizuri, ukimpikia hata kelele kidogo ama kitu kisumbue yeye, hawezi anakuwa anaenda right off. So sijui tutafanyia nini.
All right. Thank you so much, Sylvan. Wow. Okay. In regards to this specific scenario, Susan, from what I understood, the boy got into an accident, a fatal accident, which then resulted to his memory loss. He's only in Form 2. It has also showed physical appearance in the sense that Sylvan has just mentioned that he has a problem with eyes. They got glasses for that. But this whole issue, that accident, and we had talked about the different 10 stressful events that can happen. And I'm shocked that this research didn't...
Food accident.
Yes, but it says injury or illness. And in regards to Sylvan...
That's it. And that's why I told you that there are some stresses are not just ordinary stress. That is post-traumatic stress disorder. That I have developed this stress disorder after a traumatic incident. And I'm wondering whether he has seen a doctor, maybe he's seen a physician, has he seen a counselor, has he seen a counseling psychologist? Because what can be manifested in this son of SILVAN?
SILVAN, yes.
SILVAN,
yes.
When she's talking about the memory loss. I have told you one of the major responses of post-traumatic stress disorder is avoidance. Like there's a numbing, and it's wanting to deny what happened. And they need to be helped because I need to talk about the very painful, traumatic incidences at ease. But probably what happened at that particular moment, I fainted. And if somebody faints in case of any incident, just know you need to be helped to actually try. You may not go back to 100%, but you need to be helped to get there, however painful it is, so that you can come to the present. So you find any trigger, like the mother has said, any small trigger, the irritability, because if you're traumatized as well, you develop what is called hypervigilance. Something very small triggers your whole being and you're so stressed. So you realize such people you become so sensitive when you're around them. It shouldn't be. And when they realize that everybody else is hypersensitive around them, they also start thinking, I am not normal. And they will withdraw and they will get into another deeper problem, that is depression.
To close off the conversation, because if there's one thing I've also picked out from our conversation, is that different steps to coming to terms that you are stressed. You had talked about this, you've hinted about rejection, acceptance, etc. Could you take us through that phase, just quickly? Could you take us through that phase of how it is important to accept that you are stressed or that you're going through stress. And like you said, whether it could be from a divorce, weak performance in school, etc. What are those steps?
Let me clarify here that the normal stresses we go through in this life, you only need to know how you manifest stress as a person. Yes. You need to know in your body how does it show. And you also need to know what are the things that I like doing so that I can get off my stress. If you just have that self-awareness in our everyday life, go ahead and do it. But there's this other stress I have talked about, the post-traumatic stress disorder, which I said can get into anyone so long as you have encountered a situation you have never encountered before. Whether you have never imagined being maybe left by your husband or by your boyfriend, that you thought it was gonna be, this is the life forever, and then it happens, it can stress you. You lose a child that you loved so much, or you lose somebody instantly, or you lose a part of your life, of your body, or you lose an opportunity you thought, oh, if I got this opportunity, I'll be, you know. If you get into such a situation, it's good to know there are stages you go through. And the stages, the first one is shock denial, a lot of anger in there, and you're angry at yourself. Why did I allow this to happen? Angry at others, angry at God, and you know that's the worst place you can be.
Right.
When you don't have faith in the higher being. You can get into the depression phase. There you get all myriad of negative emotions and behavior and all that. So you also need to know at this level is when you need support. You need professional support. Because if you don't get out, you either lose your mind completely or you get very severe medical conditions. If you get out, how do you get out? It's important to know we need to accept. You do not need to deny anything in your life. And by accepting, I'm not saying you take a microphone and tell everybody this has happened to me. Just accept it. And if you cannot accept it on your own, this is where you need a counselor. As we give time to people, it's not about knowing, oh, your headache is so bad, so you need this kind of dosage. For us, we sit with you. We don't judge. We work with you so that you can accept what is disturbing you. And finally, when you accept, you have your freedom.
And you have healing.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was lovely. Susan Gitao, she is a psychologist helping us understand and walking us through stress and the best way to handle it. And thank you so much for being part of the conversation. For your comments and your feedback, Weekend Express is taking a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back.